Under the hospital floor, there was no silence, only whispers of a secret world. Imagine a place of healing hiding a tunnel of betrayal. What if I tell you that Ibrahim Traoré, while visiting a hospital that promised care, discovered something that could change the fate of his entire nation? Before we begin, do not forget to subscribe, because this is a kind of story that others will hide, but you deserve to know the truth. The hospital looked ordinary from the outside. Families waited for loved ones. Nurses moved with tired eyes, and doctors tried to bring comfort. Yet beneath this place of hope, there was a hollow sound that should not have existed. Ibrahim felt it when his steps echoed differently on the floor. It was a sound that carried weight, as if the ground was not holding firm, as if someone had carved space where there should be none. At first, he thought it was nothing. But when a child pointed at the floor, whispering that the walls sometimes shook at night, Ibrahim's attention sharpened. He followed the sound of machines, not the kind used for healing, but for digging. The air grew heavier, and even the lights above flickered in a way that unsettled the heart. He asked quietly, why does a hospital, a place of care, have a sound of drills hidden under it? Nobody answered. Their silence was a scream without voice. One evening, when most visitors had left, he returned to the same corridor. Alone, he pressed his hand against the wall. It vibrated. A faint rumble lived inside the concrete. Then, from the corner of his eye, he noticed a cart moving, not toward the patients, but toward a door marked storage. The man pushing it avoided every glance. His steps rushed, his hands nervous. Ibrahim followed slowly, his shadow merging with the dim light. The cart stopped. The man pulled a lever inside the wall. To Ibrahim's shock, the wall opened like a mouth swallowing secrets. A hidden stairway led down, cold air rising as if the earth itself exhaled. The cart vanished into the darkness below. Ibrahim's heart pounded, not out of fear, but out of anger. What was hidden here that even the sick above were not allowed to see? He waited until the man disappeared into the tunnel. Then he stepped closer. The air carried a smell of metal and dust, raw and unsettled. He whispered to himself, "This is not medicine." He touched the edges of the wall, his fingers covered in gray dust. Every instinct told him this was not just a passage. It was a path of theft. Down there, under the hospital, something precious was being smuggled. It was not food, not medicine, not even money. It was something far heavier. Lithium, the very element that powers the devices of the world, stolen silently while the sick groaned above. And as Ibrahim stood at the entrance of that tunnel, he knew one thing. If he stepped inside, he would not only uncover stolen minerals, he would uncover a war hidden beneath white hospital walls. The tunnel breathed like a beast, swallowing every sound Ibrahim made as he stepped down its narrow stays. Darkness wrapped around him, but the dim glow of bulbs fixed along the walls revealed the truth. This was not a forgotten passage. This was a road designed for secrecy. The walls were carved neatly, reinforced with wood and steel, as if built by engineers, not by accident. Every step confirmed what his heart already screamed. This was not new. It had existed for years, right under the feet of the sick and the dying. The deeper he walked, the louder the noises became. Metallic clanks, the grind of wheels, the echo of footsteps. He pressed himself against the wall when voices drifted closer. Two men were speaking in hushed tones, their words filled with greed, not compassion. "Load faster," one said, his accent sharp. "The trucks will not wait forever. Every delay costs money." The other replied, "Do not worry. No one looks under a hospital. They trust too much." Their laughter cut through the air like knives, casual and cruel. Ibrahim waited until their voices faded. Then he stepped forward, and what he saw made his chest tighten. The tunnel widened into a hidden chamber. Stacks of crates lined the walls, marked with strange symbols. Workers, faces covered with masks, moved quickly, lifting bags of pale, dust-covered rocks into large containers. The ground shimmered with silver-white powder. He bent down, picked a small fragment, and held it in his hand. It was light, but it carried a weight greater than gold. Lithium! He closed his fist tightly, his mind racing. How many lives were being robbed here? The earth of his people stripped while the hospital above pretended to heal. The poor came for medicine, but beneath their feet, wealth was bleeding out. Suddenly, a voice thundered from behind. "Who are you?" Ibrahim turned. A tall guard blocked the passage, a gun hanging carelessly in his hand, but his eyes sharp. For a moment, the air froze. Ibrahim's heart raced, but his face showed calm. He answered, "I came to look for the doctor." The guard narrowed his eyes, suspicious, then smirked. "Doctors do not come here. Only those who know what is truly valuable." His finger tapped the gun as he stepped closer. Ibrahim's mind searched for a way. Then, fortune gave him a moment. A wheelbarrow full of rock slipped from a worker's hands, crashing loudly. Dust filled the chamber, men shouting to clean it quickly. In that chaos, Ibrahim moved. He slipped past the guard, deeper into the tunnel, disappearing into the fog of dust. His chest burned, but his will pulled him forward. The tunnel twisted again, and they found something even darker. Not just lithium, not just crates. He saw papers pinned to the wall, maps marked with routes, destinations far across the ocean. It was not a small crime. This was an entire network, smuggling resources from under hospitals, schools, and even villages. And those who controlled it were not hidden workers. There were people in power, men who smiled in the daylight while stealing in the dark. Ibrahim's blood boiled. He whispered, "This is bigger than I thought." But before he could take another step, he heard footsteps closing in again. This time, heavier, more than one. They knew he was not one of them. The footsteps echoed louder, bouncing off the tunnel walls like drums of warning. Ibrahim pressed himself against the cold stone, his breath controlled, his heart hammering. The dim bulbs above flickered, shadows shifting, as if the tunnel itself was warning him to run. But he did not run. He crouched lower, eyes locked on the narrow bend where the sounds were coming from. 3 figures appeared, their silhouettes sharp against the dim light. Unlike the workers, these men were armed, rifles slung across their chests, radios clipped to their shoulders, their boots striking the ground with authority. These were not ordinary guards. Their discipline spoke of training, perhaps soldiers who had abandoned their oath for money. One of them barked orders into the radio, his tone urgent. "Search the southern path. Someone is inside who should not be." Ibrahim's throat tightened, but his resolve only grew stronger. If he escaped now, the truth might remain hidden. If he was caught, everything could end. Yet there was no choice. He moved silently, staying low, until his eyes caught a side passage, a smaller corridor that broke away from a main tunnel. Without hesitation, he slid into it, vanishing just as a men's flashlight beam swept across the walls. Inside the side passage, the air grew heavier. The ceiling was lower, the ground uneven, but he pressed forward. Then he froze. Ahead, a metal door stood half open, and behind it came faint cries. Human cries. He stepped closer, his heart breaking with every sound. When he pushed the door wider, his eyes met a sight he would never forget. Inside, a group of men and women sat against the walls, weak, their faces pale. Some coughed heavily, others looked too tired to move. Chains rattled as one man lifted his head to see Ibrahim. His voice was barely a whisper. "Please, help us." Ibrahim's blood ran cold. They were not just smuggling minerals. They were trapping workers underground, forcing them to dig day and night. The hospital above was not only hiding a tunnel, it was hiding human suffering. He stepped inside quickly, crouching near the chain man. "How long have you been here?" he asked. The man coughed, then whispered, "Weeks, maybe months. They promise us medicine, food, but instead they take everything. If we refuse, they beat us." Rage filled Ibrahim, but before he could answer, a sharp noise sliced the silence. The crackle of a radio, followed by a harsh voice. "He is close. Search every chamber." Panic spread among the captives. A woman whispered, "If they find you here, they will kill us all." Her words were drenched in fear. Ibrahim clenched his fists, torn between saving himself and protecting them. He whispered back, "I will not leave you. Not like this." He scanned the room quickly. In the far corner, half buried under rubble, was a broken ventilation shaft. Narrow, but wide enough for one man to crawl through. He turned to the captives. "This tunnel may lead outside. If I can break it open, you will have a chance." But before he could move, heavy boots stopped right outside the door. A voice growled, "Check inside." The metal handle began to turn. The metal door creaked, and Ibrahim's pulse raced. He stepped forward instinctively, placing himself between the captives and the entrance. The door swung wide, and two armed men stormed in, rifles raised, their flashlights slicing through the gloom. Their eyes froze on Ibrahim, an intruder where no outsider should ever be. "Who are you?" one demanded, his finger tight on the trigger. Ibrahim did not flinch. He knew hesitation could mean death. "I am here to stop this," he said firmly, his voice echoing in the small chamber. "You are destroying lives, and it ends tonight." The guard sneered. Brave words for a dead man. He lifted his weapon. But before the shot rang out, Ibrahim hurled a loose stone from the ground, striking the flashlight. The beam shattered, plunging half the room into darkness. Using the confusion, Ibrahim lunged forward, grabbing the barrel of the rifle and shoving it aside. The weapon fired, the deafening blast bouncing through the chamber, sparks flying as a bullet ricocheted against stone. Chaos erupted. The captives screamed, chains rattling as they pressed against the walls. The second guard raised his gun, but Ibrahim slammed his elbow into the first man's throat, wrenching the weapon free. Without aiming, he swung the rifle like a club, knocking the second guard to the ground. For a heartbeat, silence followed, then the crackle of radios outside. Reinforcements were coming. Ibrahim knew he had only moments. He turned to the prisoners. "Listen to me. I cannot fight them all, but I can give you a chance. That shaft in the corner, it may be your way out. Trust me." A young woman shook her head, her eyes wide with fear. "If they catch us, they will kill everyone." Ibrahim knelt beside her, gripping her hand tightly. "If you stay, you will die slowly. If you move now, you fight for freedom. I promise I will cover you." The woman's tears shimmered in the dim light, but she nodded. Slowly, the others began crawling toward the broken shaft, hope flickering where despair had lived. Ibrahim turned back to the unconscious guards. One of them groaned, struggling to rise. Ibrahim's jaw tightened. He grabbed the rifle firmly, slammed the butt against the man's temple, and silenced him. Then the heavy stomp of boots drew closer. Shadows spilled across the doorway. More guards were coming, many more. Ibrahim positioned himself at the door, body tense, hands gripping the stolen rifle. He had no illusions. He was outnumbered, trapped underground, with only seconds before they stormed in. But his heart burned with a fire stronger than fear. The captives whispered prayers as they squeezed into the shaft, one after another. Ibrahim looked back only once, his eyes locking with theirs. "Go. Do not look back. Whatever happens here, keep moving." The door burst open. A flood of armed men surged forward, flashlights blazing, rifles leveled. Ibrahim did not wait. He charged into them, weapon raised, his roar shaking the chamber. Stone, metal, and fire clashed in a storm of violence. Above ground, the hospital lights flickered again, as if the earth itself trembled with a battle raging beneath. The chamber thundered with gunfire. Bullets struck stone, sparks danced in the dark, and Ibrahim dug behind a pillar, clutching the rifle against his chest. Dust rained from the ceiling with every blast. He could hear the terrified gasps of the captives crawling deeper into the shaft. That sound alone kept him from surrendering. He rose, fired once, and a guard crumpled. Another bullet whizzed past his ear, close enough to scorch his skin. Ibrahim knew he could not hold this position for long. Yet something inside him refused to retreat. He had walked too far into this truth. To give up now would mean leaving the poison of greed buried under this hospital forever. A sudden shout cut through the chaos. "Stop firing." The order echoed with authority. The shooting ceased, leaving only the ringing in Ibrahim's ears. From the shadows, a tall figure stepped into the chamber. His uniform was sharper, his boots polished, and his voice steady. This was no ordinary guard. This was a commander. "Ibrahim Traore," the man said coldly, recognition flashing in his eyes. "So it is true. The soldier who pretends to fight for the people, sneaking into my operation like a thief." Ibrahim narrowed his gaze. "Your operation is killing children. You are bleeding this land dry while mothers watch their sons waste away. You think you own the earth beneath this hospital, but it belongs to the people." The commander smirked, tilting his head. "And the people will never know. The government is silent, the corporations pay in silence, and now you will die in silence. He raised his hand, signaling his men to surround Ibrahim. For a moment, Ibrahim felt the weight of defeat press against his chest. There were too many, and his body was battered. But then, a faint sound reached him. Chain scraping stone, faint voices echoing deeper through the shaft. The captives were still moving, still alive, still believing he could buy them time. That thought reignited the fire in his blood. "I will not die in silence," Ibrahim growled. "If I fall, the earth itself will speak of what you have done here." Before the commander could respond, the ground rumbled violently. A deep, groaning roar filled the chamber. Dust poured from the ceiling, and stones cracked. The smuggling tunnel, carved carelessly for greed, was collapsing under its own weight. Panic erupted among the guards. Some scrambled for the exit, others froze in terror. The commander steadied himself, shouting, "Hold the line! Do not let him escape." But his order was drowned by the quake's fury. A massive slab of rock tore free from above, crashing down between Ibrahim and the guards, splitting the chamber. Coughing through the dust, Ibrahim realized fate had granted him one final chance. On his side of the collapse stood the shaft where the captives had fled. On the other side, the commander and his men roared with rage, their path blocked. Ibrahim pressed his hand against the cool stone of the shaft wall, whispering to himself, "Not silence, not today." He pushed forward into the narrow tunnel, every muscle aching, every step driven by the hope that the captives had found a way to freedom. Behind him, the commander's furious voice echoed faintly, promising vengeance. But the earth swallowed his threats, leaving only the sound of crumbling rock and the fading footsteps of a man who refused to be broken. The narrow shaft stretched endlessly, walls pressing tight against Ibrahim's shoulders. His breath grew heavier, each inhale filled with dust and dampness. Still, he pressed on, guided by the faint sound of movement ahead. The captives had to be close. His boots slipped on uneven stone. His body screamed for rest, yet his mind clung to one thought. He had not come this far to abandon them. Finally, a dim glow pierced the darkness. A wooden hatch, broken from the inside, let in a streak of light. Ibrahim crawled through and emerged into an abandoned storeroom above ground. Crates lay scattered, each branded with foreign symbols and filled with shimmering lithium bricks. The truth hit him. This was not just a hidden mine. It was a hub where the earth-stolen blood was packaged for shipment, smuggled across oceans while hospitals above pretended to heal. A soft cry pulled him from his shock. In the corner, the captives huddled together, their eyes wide with fear yet burning with hope. Children clung to their mothers, miners coughed through the dust, and their faces lit up when they recognized him. "You are safe now," Ibrahim said, though his voice cracked with exhaustion. "No one will bury your truth again." But before relief could settle, heavy footsteps thundered above. The commander had found another path. The storeroom door burst open. Soldiers stormed in, rifles raised. The captives screamed, clutching each other. Ibrahim stood between them and the rifles, sweat mixing with the dirt on his skin. His body was failing, but his spirit refused to bend. The commander entered last, his uniform now coated with dust from the collapse. His smile was cruel, his voice steady. "You think you saved them? You exposed nothing. No one will believe you. Lithium is life to the world. Do you really think they care where it comes from?" Ibrahim's chest heaved, his fists trembling. "If the world has forgotten its conscience, then I will remind them, even if it costs me everything." He seized one of the crates, heaving it onto the floor with a crash. Lithium bars spilled across the stone, their glow almost unnatural. Gasps filled the room. The sight was undeniable, evidence too solid to silence. For a heartbeat, the commander's mask of arrogance cracked. His eyes darted to his men, who shifted uneasily, no longer certain of their cause. Doubt spread like fire. Ibrahim saw his chance. "Look at them." Ibrahim shouted, pointing at the captives. "Look at the children breathing dust while you carry blood money. Do you want your own sons and daughters to live like this?" Silence. The guard rifles wavered. The commander barked orders, but hesitation had already taken root. Some lowered their weapons. Others stepped back. The power he held was slipping. Realizing his grip was lost, the commander drew his pistol and aimed directly at Ibrahim's heart. But before he could fire, a trembling miner hurled a stone. It struck his hand, the pistol clattered to the ground, and chaos erupted. The captives surged forward, no longer victims but voices of defiance. Ibrahim caught the pistol and aimed it back, not for revenge, but to hold the line. His voice cut through the frenzy. This ends now. No more tunnels. No more silence. The truth will rise from this place. And as the morning sun broke through the cracks in the roof, flooding the storeroom with light, Ibrahim knew that the story of this tunnel was no longer hidden. It would travel beyond borders, carried not by soldiers or corporations, but by the voices of the people who had survived it.